Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Drew Amoroso again, and thanks for joining us today for this week's edition of 11 at 11. I appreciate you being here, and congratulations to you for taking some time out of your busy week to work on yourself and on your workday. So this week I want to start with a little story, and I was telling a couple of you who joined a little early about this, but I'm originally from Pennsylvania. And I moved out to California to go to law school in 2007. And then I eventually moved to San Francisco in 2011. And I was lucky enough to get this great apartment in Cow Hollow, which is a really beautiful neighborhood in San Francisco. And it turns out that I ended up living in that same apartment for almost 10 years, which is a pretty long time. So this is a picture from my rooftop, pretty awesome view of the Golden Gate Bridge. Spent a lot of time up there and really have loved living here. Today, I'm broadcasting to you from that apartment on the last day that I'll actually be in it because I decided to move. And today is moving day. And the apartment's actually empty right now. And as soon as I finish this 11 at 11, I'm off to Southern California. And then I'm going to head to, I think, a couple of other states, some remote places in the Southwest, and spend a month or so in each spot just to kind of get a change of scenery and really dig into my work and some of my writing. Couldn't be more excited about this move. And I was having a conversation with my friend Anna this morning about the idea of walking the line between what it means to have the stability of being stationary and being part of a community of people, which I've grown here, but also giving myself the fun and the adventure that comes with being someone who changes up their environment and surroundings every now and then. And so as I was having this conversation, I was thinking about whether I would miss being stationary and whether I would be able to strike that perfect balance and basically like walk the line between those two things. And as we were talking about this idea of walking the line, it got me thinking about how we are constantly trying to walk the perfect line all the time. And what I mean by that is we put a lot of pressure on ourselves each day to strike this perfect balance between two competing desires or interests that we have that seem to be on opposite ends of the spectrum, right? So we try to walk the line between work and play, the line between eating healthy and treating ourselves to foods that might not be the best for us, the line between being responsible and doing the right thing, and then on the other side, kind of taking it easy and maybe being irresponsible sometimes, or the line between planning ahead and making sure everything is lined up versus being spontaneous, right? And a whole bunch of other sort of dualities that we contend with all the time. And when we try to walk the line and balance what seem to be competing interests all day long, a couple of things happen. So first, by focusing on trying to walk this perfect line and strike the perfect balance, we lose sight of what it means to be in the moment and experience great things that are happening each day because we're permanently stuck on being in evaluation mode. We're constantly trying to bring ourselves back to the center instead of just taking a moment to experience what is happening right now. So one example for me personally, where I experience this sometimes when I find a pocket of time in my workday, is I'm having fun, or I maybe take a longer break than I thought. And I start to sort of scold myself because I feel like it's work time, right? And I need to head back towards a middle ground and be more responsible about getting back to work, right? I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but sometimes I don't allow myself to experience any fun or appreciation for something because it's the middle of my workday and I should be focusing on work and walking that line. So second, when we're focused on the line, we start to pass judgment on ourselves about how well we're doing walking that line. So we start to ask questions like, should I be doing less of this one thing or more of something else? Am I working too hard or do I deserve a break? Do I need to plan this out or can I just kind of roll with it and be spontaneous? And we start to put this pressure on ourselves to answer these questions. And when we can't come up with the right answer and we bounce back and forth, we start to beat up on ourselves unnecessarily. And then third, when we try to walk the line, we get caught up in thinking about how other people are thinking about us and whether they think that we are doing a good enough job of walking that line, right? Can you picture people in your head, like judging whether what you're doing right now is the right thing and whether you've gone too far to one side or the other? I think about that all the time. Colleagues, clients, bosses, family members. And so we put that additional pressure on ourselves. But here's why this walking the line type of mindset is a total pitfall for us. We put all this pressure on ourselves to figure out how to do it. But the reality is that we rarely experience what it's like to walk that perfect line. And even when we do experience that moment of perfection, it only lasts for so long, right? That line starts to become more like a tightrope, not a line, but a tightrope. We become ultra focused on and preoccupied with whether we're doing it right. And it turns out that we're not very good at doing anything perfectly. And if you think about how life works, we're always in this constant state of shifting back and forth between being on one side of the line or the other side of the line. And so if we evaluate how things are going based on whether we're walking that perfect line, most days are going to be miserable for us because we're not going to be there. We're going to be on one side or the other. So here's what I want to propose to you. Instead of moving through your day thinking about how to walk the line perfectly, I want you to consider how you might shift your mindset toward developing a moment-to-moment, judgment-free awareness that allows you to recognize when you're getting caught up in trying to walk that line. So in other words, instead of using that line as your marker of whether things are going right or going the way that they should be going, what would it be like if you had the presence of mind to just be aware of what's happening throughout your day without applying any kind of judgment as to whether you're walking the line or doing it the right way? So I have this theory, this personal theory, that each of us actually knows more about what we need and where our boundaries are and how we can take care of ourselves than we give ourselves credit for. And the reason we can't always see it is because there's so much noise going around outside of us, and we don't pay enough attention to what our mind is telling us it needs or what it wants to do. So if you want to have a shift in perception on this, here's a few specific things that I would encourage you to do. First, let's just identify some areas in your life where you might be unfairly asking yourself to walk the line. I bet you could identify a lot of them that are tied to things like your performance, maybe at work, struggles that you might be having trying to balance work with family time or downtime, things like that. So if you want to do this exercise, I'd encourage you to just pick out one area or one thing where you find yourself unfairly trying to walk the line. Just so we can use an example, let's talk about balancing work with personal or rest time. So probably a good example for almost all of us, you know, the conflict that we face between should I keep working or should I call it quits and give myself a break? What's the right thing for me to do? You know, it's 5 o'clock, I still have more work. That moment where we have to make this decision. So that's part one. Part two is ask yourself, how can I start to pay less attention to the line and pay more attention to evaluating the state of my mindset? So in other words, how can you move from a place of judgment and comparison to a place where you're actually aware of how you're thinking moment to moment so that you can take more intentional action? So in our example, a lot of times when we're deciding whether to end the day or not, or whether to take a break or not, we don't really give much thought to where we're at in the moment, right? We think about whether someone else would think it's acceptable for us to stop right now, or we get caught up in the moment and swing too far in the direction of just working without pausing to evaluate what's going on with us, right? We think, well, if my boss knew that I was stopping at 5, would that be okay with it? What would they think about it, right? So in step 2, what I'm suggesting is that you just take the time to pause, evaluate where it is that you are, and then take your next steps, right? Then you're less likely to get caught up in whether you're doing a good enough job of sticking to walking that fictional line. And then third and finally, if you do feel like you've strayed too far to one side, how can you course correct gradually and without judgment? So just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that you never have any point of orientation whatsoever, right? Striving for some sort of midline can be very grounding and very important, actually. This is important though. What I am suggesting is that you take the time to evaluate what it is that you actually need instead of being preoccupied with trying to meet some perfect balance between the two that is really elusive and doesn't really exist. So going back to my example, if I evaluate the state of my mindset and I find that, you know what, I do need to call it a day because I'm really tired and I'm not going to do my best work, then I'm just not matching my actions based on what I think I should be doing, but instead of what I know that I need. So moving from what I think I should be doing to something that I know that I need. And if I know that I need it, then I can follow through with taking a break and calling it a day because I've spent the time to evaluate and make a decision with more intention. If you catch yourself having gone too far in one direction or the other, that's okay. You can bring yourself back towards the middle without judgment. Okay, let's spend some time taking questions if there are any. Does this resonate with anyone? Can anyone give an example or want to share an example of how you find yourself trying to walk a line unfairly throughout the day? It really is about what you need in the moment, and just redirecting your thoughts back toward like what is it that I need right now, because that's what ultimately allows you to show up at your best, right? For all those people, if you're in a mindset where you need a break but you're depriving yourself of it, you're not going to do your best work, right? So it's a matter of evaluating that and knowing that it's okay, because everybody around you wants you to show up at your best anyway. So if that's what it takes, then that's what you have to give yourself permission to do. And guess what? I bet your boss or your clients or everybody else is doing the exact same thing too, right? Like we think everyone's like at their desk just pounding away all day and like expecting, when they send an email for us to immediately respond, like they're hitting refresh while they're waiting for us. The truth is that they're in their own world doing their own thing. And I bet if you ask them, is it okay if I take a 10-minute break so I can give you better work? They would of course agree with that. Not that you need their permission, but people want you to show up at your best. Thoughts on this? Two really good contributions. Okay, we will leave it there for today. Thanks again for joining, everyone. Great group this week. Would love to connect with you and get your help spreading the word about this series. So if you could share it with a friend, maybe a colleague or a coworker or someone in your family, or give us a shout out on social media, that would be awesome. I'd really appreciate it. Our next episode is next Monday at the same time in a different location for me. Next week, we're going to be covering what to do when we anticipate that people are going to disagree with us. I said that we'd be covering that last week, but this came top of mind for me today. I thought it was important to share it, but we'll hit that topic then. Idea here is that people have and will continue to disagree with us, but the anticipation of that can really limit our ability to make progress in a day, right? Thinking that someone might disagree with what we have to say or what we're going to do. So we'll talk about how to overcome that next week. I will look forward to diving into that with you then. See you then. Go have a great workday. Thanks, everybody.